for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you.
Yes, just for you.
Love
Hello,
it.
friends. Like, put everybody up. Hello. How are you today? Why did I do that? That's very interesting that I'm doing this. All of a sudden, I just do the weirdest things. There we go. Hello, friends. How are you today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I just made it to the afternoon. Yes, welcome. As always, I'm always excited and happy to see the faces staring back at me who are all about saving our kids. So yes, thank you for spending your time with me. And I very, very much appreciate both of you. We're starting this year slightly different, but we're still going to move in the same motion. The whole entire goal is that we want to do what? Save our children. And that means that we have to understand what we're saving them from and what are we releasing them to go into, right? So first and foremost, always thank you, parents. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, administrators, for doing the work that we cannot very much do on our own. You are part of our community. We very much appreciate you, and we are working to improve what is happening for you. So before we can ever create a solution that works, we have to understand why we're creating it. I love the fact that the two of you are here. So Molly, because you're a parent coach, and Kristen, because and I'm doing good, Kristen.
You are.
Kristen, because you're an advocate. So you're teaching parents how to advocate for themselves, for their children, which will ultimately improve their life and advocate for themselves at the same time. Yes. So let's kick it off.
Sounds
so
good.
What I always start with is the fact that we first have to understand our pool. Who are we working to help and protect? When I started in 2014, the population was 55 million children went to school, K through 12. We are now looking at 49.4 million students in the fall of 2020 and 2021, with a projected total enrollment decreasing to 46.9 million by the fall of 2031. That is letting us know that something's wrong, that something's not right, because the kiddos have to, first of all, kiddos is used by you guys, the educators. That's where I got it from. I do not believe necessarily in calling children kids or things like that. But what I learned is that in the school, in the educational arena, they have a tendency to call the little people, because that's what they are, the little people, kiddos, right? And so that's where that term comes from me. But again, we have a lot of students, and you guys are outnumbered, because we know that there is 90,000 teachers in the United States. And there's a teacher shortage, right? You know what? Something's not right with that number. I'm sorry, 4 million teachers.
Yes. Yeah.
There you go. 90,000 schools. Here's the thing. I know for me, I make mistakes and I'm okay with it. It helps me be better as a human. So as soon as I heard it, I was like, that number doesn't make sense. It's 4 million teachers across the United States in 90,000 schools. That's the numbers, okay? 55% in 2023 want to quit. That means greater than 2 million teachers want to leave the profession. So that's a problem, right? So, and we know that 37% of the children do not read on grade level. Now, I want to be very clear that grade level, when they say not read on grade level, math and reading are combined. They are the same. So for those parents and families and people who don't understand that, when they say 37% can't read on grade level, they are also looping in the math scores as well. So if they can't read, they can't do math. If they can't do math, they can't run money. If they can't run money, they will they will blow up anything financial that's going to be for them. So those are the key points. So that being said, we're going to just kind of roll into some things. I'm going to give you opportunity for you to introduce yourselves real quick. But we are going to talk. We are going to have a conversation today about the Republican bill. This is not a political conversation. Let me say it. Let me say it louder for the people in the back. This is not a political conversation. This is a conversation about what is happening and how they're turning this political, how they are turning school into a political arena of sorts that is ultimately impacting our children. So this is not a political conversation. This is a conversation about the politics that are being injected into our schools. So House Republican funding bill kicks teachers out of the classroom and takes away job opportunities and harms women and children. So there's a whole lot in this one bill. The one thing I will say, and I highlighted in red, in the midst of a teacher shortage, they have introduced a bill that would kick 220,000 teachers from the classroom. We are witnessing a widespread attack on public education that should horrify us all. So I started this last year, and I understood what I was here to do, and I'm going to continue to move in that direction, with that understanding, because ultimately, if you say 4 million teachers in the United States, 55% of them want to quit, and 220,000 of them are being removed. Who's teaching the children?
Well, and better yet, now we don't have a teacher shortage because we have cut all the positions. That's my bigger fear.
Where are these children going?
Well, bigger
It
class
literally
sizes
is the first sentence I wrote down. More than 200,000 less teachers. Right there is just disgusting to me. And I don't understand. And this is coming from someone who was funded through Title I, which we'll talk about later today. And I no longer have a position because my district got rid of it because it wasn't important anymore to be focused on behavior and social emotional learning.
Well,
so
now
you
up
struck a
first.
chord with me. You know that.
All right. So go ahead, Kristen. Tell people who you are and why you were able to get on that soapbox, my friend.
So the reason I'm home on a school day is because 2 years ago, I left public school education after 23 years. I am a special education originally trained and then became a general education teacher by way of multiple classrooms, multiple districts, multiple states. But I ended up landing back in special education about 12 years ago and became a compliance officer and really focused on making sure kids were getting what they needed. With that said, I then stayed in education for several more years as a behavior interventionist, autism specialist, and an SEL coach, social emotional learning coach. But I have since left, and I'm now working as a national professional development coach and trainer. And I also have launched my own business to do student advocacy for students with 504s and IEPs in public school setting, in any school setting that I can advocate in. So in a nutshell, that's who I am. And the bill here has just really sparked some nerves with me in terms of we're decimating a system that's already been decimated so many times. You know, when you think about the number of things that we're taking away from, our health and human services, education, and all the related agencies that are involved, this is going to affect every human being from birth till death, whether you go to school or not. It's going to affect you when you walk into the doctor's office. It's going to affect you when you're looking for housing, when you're looking for help getting out of college and either going to college or finding a program out of college to help you, because they're going to cut all of that. It's going to cut all of our supports for our students that have English as a second language or low income families, our Title I and II families and III. It's just really going to mess things up. So on that note, I'll stop and I'll let somebody else take the floor.
You're hilarious, but you're right. And so we're going to have that conversation. We have a lot of time to have those conversations today, because one of the things is we want to discuss where we are, what we're going to break it down piece by piece kind of thing, and figure out what we need to do and who we need to bring into the room in order to help, because education is for all. And teachers are not the only educators. So we do need to be mindful and respectful of the fact that we have options. We just choose not to exercise those options, or we're unaware that they exist. Right. So I want to change that ultimately, so we don't have that anymore for other people. Okay, Miss Molly, tell
All right.
us about. So I know you may not jump on your soapbox right away, but it's okay. We're going to give you reason to.
That's all right. That's all right. Yes, um, I got the surprise of hearing, hey, this is what we're going to talk about today. And I was like, wow, you will have to educate me because I have not read that bill and am curious. But here is my background for those of you who are watching. I was an elementary music teacher for 20 years. So in the public schools, teaching all the children, every single child in the school. My school averaged about 750 kids, and so I have that as a history. Working with the special ed population, talking to Kristen here, I was lucky enough to be able to have lots of time with the special ed students in my classroom. So I have experienced many music periods with them and been in planning meetings for them, IEPs and 504s and all of those things. So I have a little bit of an understanding of the special needs things. One of the reasons that I am not in the classroom right now is that the system was not supporting the children in a way that I felt okay with. And I was in a great district with amazing administration, with teachers who were passionate and powerful, and parents who tried. And with all of the things going right, the system was still not able to support the kids that really needed it the most. So my decision was to bypass the system, move out of it. I am certified as a parent coach, certified through the Center for the Challenging Child and a New Family Services. For those who are like, you can get certified in parent coaching? Yes, you can. And I am bypassing the system and I am going straight to the parents because the parents are able to do things like advocate for their children. They are able to be the change makers, quite literally for the brain chemistry and the body chemistry of their children. So that is what I am passionate about. And I am also quite interested in diving into this conversation. Been in the school system for 20 years as a employee and have watched things come and go. And I'm really curious to listen to this conversation and to have and to be asked questions and to react because I have only had a chance to glance over what you have sent me. And I'm curious about what, our goal in this conversation is, save our children. And the question that you asked at the beginning, Tabatha, is what are we saving them from? We have to know. And looking at what's going on in the schools these days, we are in the middle of a mental health crisis for the children of America. And I can provide you research on that. But it's
don't
a rough
worry.
time.
You'll start dropping your stats, my friend. Drop
Yep.
your stats.
Hold on. Y'all talk and I will go get my piece of paper up, my document up with the stats that I have.
Yeah, with stats. Okay, cool. So we got that. Okay. Yep. So my thing is very I don't like that view. So my thing is that look, I do all kinds of weird things right live. Like this is a live thing. We're gonna do it. My thing is very simple. So here we want to educate, fill in the gap of education, fill in what you do not understand. So if you don't understand it, if you're unsure of what that looks like and things like that, then we're going to be here to help you with that. That's what the ultimate goal is. Now, that being said, we're going to educate you now. Because here's the thing. When I you just go to school. As a parent, you send your children to the school that they're feeded into, right? They're allocated. The line tells you what school you're supposed to go to. So I never recognized that I was in a Title I school or anything else. It wasn't until I went into business that I realized that there was definitely some differences. So, and I also understand that I think to a certain degree, you may not think that you have enough information to have this conversation with us, Molly, but I promise you, you do.
Yeah.
Because you spent 20 years in education. And so from that point of view, you're going to be able to provide us information that's going to be able to help us understand what we need to do and how we can do things differently and better, for the student. Because we have to remember what's in it for us. What's in it for us is that we gain a team member on the other side of adulthood. That's what's in it for us. We gain an employee that's efficient and effective and knows how to communicate and does all those things that we really think that they should know, and it helps to improve their life. That's what's in it for you. So I have a hard time with some of that, but I don't want to digress. I just want to go into where we're going, right? So Title I schools, improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. Title II schools are preparing, training, and recruiting high quality teachers, principals, or other school leaders. Title III is language instruction for English learners and immigrant students. Title IV is 21st century schools. I have yet to understand what that means. Title V, flexibility and accountability. Title VI, Indian, Native Hawaiian, and Alaskan Native education. Title VII, impact aid. Title VIII, general provisions. So for the sake of our conversation, we are going to limit it to Title I and Title II. And Title I is defined as, you have the definition for that, Kristen?
I do. Title I is the largest educational program that was founded in 1965 and then reauthorized through No Child Left Behind in 2002. The purpose is to make sure that all children have the opportunity to have a high quality education. So providing extra help to students who need it the most, children who are the furthest from meeting the state standards. Lots of schools that qualify for Title I have it's based on socioeconomic and geographic disadvantages in terms of within the neighborhood, how many kids are affected, and a lot of times then those schools are funded by the number of students that have needs, but there may be extra supports in that building that a school down the street may not have, like an extra counselor or social worker or a mental health worker. A behavior specialist like myself, that was not in every building. But the idea is that it works in the sense that the funds are dispersed to the schools, and those students, based on the number of students that have free and reduced lunch, then qualify, as Title I or not. Where I ran into issues with that is when I worked in a very large school system, and my school was technically Title I, but we were the 16th school that qualified out of, the 15 that really got the funding. So we didn't get funding, even though the 15th school and the 16th school were just pieces apart from each other. We didn't have those extra positions at my building like a Title I school would have. So we had to really get creative and think outside of the box. And I have to say that's where I learned and grew the most as an educator. I think that's where I learned I knew how to teach versus just the kids showed up every day and had fun. I actually said, oh, I can teach kids how to write and read.
Yeah. So I just want to share all the information we have. You can look up. So anybody who's like, I challenge a number, go ahead, do it. You can go to research.com. You'll find a lot of the information there. You'll also find it I had it up and then it ran away. The other one is the Department of Education. So you do have, Department of Education. You have all the data and information. So I'm not telling you anything it's not out there and available. So here's what I will say. I was going to ask a question, but I'm going to start here. So the Title I schools get money. That is based off of the free and reduced lunch. So in order to qualify or become eligible to be a Title I school, you have to have a minimum of 40% on free or reduced lunch. Okay. So that being said, that means that there's a lot of schools, because I keep running into schools of 70-something% free and reduced lunch, things like that. So those are definitely Title I schools. But let's be very clear. your school being a Title I does not mean that your neighboring school is a Title I. So it's so inside the same district, you can have many Title I schools, but you can also have the other titles too that exist that do not impact. It does not pointing to low income.
Yes.
So it says more than 90% of the U.S. public school systems receive some sort of Title I funding. Okay. So what they do. My question is, with this change, you worked in a Title I school. Have both of you worked in Title I schools before?
My kids both go to a Title I school, but I worked, my school that I worked in for 20 years was not.
Okay. Kristen, you've worked in that.
I've been in 4 states and yes, several types.
So you've worked on both sides of it, yes?
I've worked in very affluent, like the private school, the public school of the private schools kind of thing. And then I've worked at the other end of the spectrum where no one wants to step foot in that building.
Yeah, because you're funny walking through the streets talking about it's all right. We'll see what happens, friends. You know, I got this. I can take care of myself. Don't worry about me. Right. Worry about yourself. Worry about yourself. So my question is, when you, from my standpoint, I'm saying to myself, if we are all low income families and we are sending our children into low income schools, don't we think that the low income people need more support than the more affluent schools? So why would you not? You're giving the schools, the way that they allocate the money is kind of funny, right? Because the Title I schools gets their allocation, but then the other affluent schools, campuses will pull some of their money and send it back to the school so that they can redisperse new money, same money, but just
to help balance that out better.
Right. And they're sending it in. They're sending it in for Title I schools to get additional money that needed to be allocated to them to begin with. Would it not be a better solution to actually put more resources in improving the development of those children specifically, so that you don't gain so many more under that same umbrella?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a no-brainer in the sense of like, that makes sense. So why would we do that? But at the same time, it blows my mind that we do these things through funding that shifts year to year. So there's no consistency then in any of our intervention process. And that's the biggest thing that I think that frustrates me. In the last district I was in, there are 30 some schools here in the district. Well, they're now all free and reduced lunch. Every student receives free and reduced lunch across the district. I can tell you right now, we have students that are coming from Figure 8 Island in Wrightsville Beach, and that's an island you cannot access publicly here because it's so affluent. And then we have students that are coming from trailer parks in, the worst of the worst neighborhoods along the Eastern Shore. So the discrepancy there is just mind-blowing. Everybody gets free and reduced lunch, though. Everybody gets free lunch and free breakfast. Okay.
So help me understand. Are you saying that because everyone is getting free and reduced lunch and breakfast now, just across the board, there is there's no longer a way to check and to use numbers to get the funding? There's no longer a marker that can be used to to measure if a certain school needs more funding?
I think there is. I won't speak to whether or not there is or isn't, because I'm not sure and I don't want to misspeak for sure. But okay. I think that one of the things that's happening, and I just know of 2 different districts in particular where it's free and reduced. It's free lunch and breakfast across the board. It's happening in Baltimore County schools in Maryland, where my niece and nephew are in school, but it's also happening here in North Carolina. I'm in the Wilmington area. And it's 2 different districts here that I've worked in that both do that now. And what I've seen is that shift then becomes, okay, well, now we're just equally dispersing and acting like, well, if we give everybody everything the same, then that's fair. Well, we teach and preach that fair is not equal. and that
Right,
equal is
but
not always fair.
right. I think what I'm confused about is the the example that you're giving is about feeding the children, and what I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and recently, in the past year or two, there has been a shift in Minneapolis, at least. I don't remember if it's across the entire state or just for this district, where everyone gets lunch and breakfast. Everyone, and I have hailed that as like, yippee! Everybody
Absolutely.
gets it. So that's where
I'll
I'm a little.
celebrate that,
That's where I think I'm just a little confused on where how that point comes back around to the Title I conversation. So I'll drop out and just let us move
No,
to
so
what.
because you're not the only one that's going to have that question.
Exactly,
So we really do need to kind of evaluate it and push it out. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is to educate enough for you to go and start asking questions elsewhere, so that you can get a result that is conducive to what you want, right?
Yeah.
So let me go back.
Go.
So Title I schools, period.
Yes.
So the marker that they use is the free and or reduced lunch, right?
Right.
So when you have those 100 students that show up, and you say 70 of them cannot afford to feed themselves, their families cannot afford to fund their meals, then you have to give them food. So if they can't afford to fund their meals, then there's probably some other things they can't afford to fund either.
Absolutely.
So now, and here's the thing, Title I schools are in low income areas. Low income areas only are low income because that's where the families can afford to live.
Right.
Why is it that they can afford to live there? Because they're only making basic, maybe minimum wage or slightly above it. So they are not working. They're not working to live with a living wage. So therefore, now when you look at a Title I school, the landscape does not look like the regular schools, the other schools, the books, the pen, all the stuff does not exist there any longer. And so even though the calculation, the way that they have calculated how, and I know there is a calculation, I cannot talk strongly to it, but I do know it does exist because it has been something that was explained to me. So what I will say is this: there is a calculation that they use to allocate funds to every single school.
Yes.
And they use strictly the calculation to do that. But they've also have allocated those schools, that Title I school. And then for there, if they have 15 schools and 5 of them are Title I schools, they're going to turn to those other 10 schools and say, we're going to give you your budget based off of the tax dollars that was paid from your community to pay for that school. I need you to use 80% of it and send me back 20% so that I can send it to the Title I schools who do not have the ability to generate that type of money that brings them in there.
Right. Thumbs up.
So how does that impact the child? Is that what you're asking?
Nope. I'm just trying to clarify where we're so we're saying it's a good thing. What we're saying is, when we all rise, we all rise.
Right. In this situation. However, my question was, and I think this is where the stuff came in, where confusion came in.
Right. Go back to the question.
Why would you not put more resources in a place where they need the resources because they cannot afford it at home? The ones who can afford it at home, allow them to handle that at home. Or why would you not stack the deck for those kiddos who are having more challenges?
So who is not?
So that's part of this bill under the Department of Education. Part of the cuts that would occur. There's a $57.1 billion discretionary fund that is a cut of $22.5 billion from last year. It's a 28% cut in our Department of Education's funding. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So yes. So
remember, I haven't read the stuff we're talking about.
Right.
You guys are going off on a thing, and I'm like, where? What are we talking about here?
Right,
But
Molly,
this is
you're like
good.
I was the first time Christine and Tabitha showed me the bill, and I literally
Okay.
was picking my jaw up off the ground going, wait, no, this can't
Okay,
be
so
real.
for
Wait,
this
what?
conversation, could you bring forward a couple of those points? Because other people probably haven't read what you've read.
Well,
Yes.
no, wait. It was given to me the same way.
And that's part of the issue, and that's one of the things I think we're trying to get organized, having this year-long theme and talking about and making sure. And I'm going on other shows and talking about this bill as well and writing
Okay.
about it as much as I can, because the thing is, I'm an educator who cares about this stuff and reads, goes looking for these things to read, and I didn't
Okay.
know about it.
So
that
tell
was
me again. I'm going to take notes. My paper and pencil.
You're hilarious.
What is I need to understand.
I get
I
it.
am an average Joe, right? And I have what I consider a good brain, and I try to do best in the world, and I'm overwhelmed with all the stuff in the world, and I'm putting my head down and covering my head in the sand, which is the wrong thing to do, but sometimes we need to do it for survival. And I'm like, "What? There's a bill that we're talking about? What?" Okay, so
Yeah.
will you maybe did this already and I disassociated because it's so painful to listen to things about education these days.
I
So
understand.
could you review for me a couple of the main
Absolutely.
points that you're like, this is what they're doing? I'm going
Absolutely.
to write slowly. I'm writing notes.
Okay.
This is out of control. That's all we know. And don't worry, Molly. So here's the thing. This was done to me too. When
Okay.
she dropped the bill in my lap, I was like, "What?
What are you talking about?" Yeah.
And we were going on like in 5 minutes, and I was like, "This is nuts." So, but
Okay.
it's because I'm able to catch up on it for sure. My points. The points that bothered me probably the most is the fact that this bill would decimate support for children K through 12, elementary schools, and early childhood education.
Pause. How so? Where? Read it to me.
So it says that. Okay, go ahead.
You want me to share?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so
Yep.
if they were to cut Title I, for example,
Is that what they're saying they're going to do?
That one of the projections is that they would cut Title I. It's $3.7 billion, and it would be a cut of $14.7 billion from last year.
Okay.
So we're talking about a budget that used to be almost 19 billion, and now we're cutting it to almost 4 billion.
So more than in half.
More than half, for sure. And that cut in particular, this is where I think, Molly, you're going to go, oh,
thank you.
This is where the 220,000 teachers that are extra positions in Title I schools, they would lose those positions.
Okay.
So all of those extra teachers to bring class sizes down, or support staff that were, paraprofessionals that are floating and helping in general ed classes for kids that don't have support. Yes.
Okay, now you've got my panties in a bunch.
Good.
Okay,
Yep.
So
I knew you were going to get there. I knew it.
So for those of you watching who don't understand what extra teachers do, I'm going to just go for a minute. Cut me off when you need me to stop.
Do it.
Okay. My very first year of teaching, someone asked me, Molly, if you ran the world, if you ran the school systems, what would you change? My very first year of teaching. And I said these two things. I said smaller class sizes and more paraprofessionals. That means more teachers' assistants, more people who are in the classroom, supporting the kids who need it most, following them around, helping them when they need some regulation time, when the teacher is trying to teach.
Right.
And there's a kid who needs extra supports. The paraprofessionals know them best, and they take them where they need. They communicate with the teacher. The paraprofessionals are angels, and they deserve more than they get. So those are the two things I said my very first year of teaching. After 20 years, I say the same damn thing.
Yep.
Because class sizes is the biggest issue with how teachers can connect with, support, get to know, respond to children and their families. If the class sizes are ginormous, the teacher doesn't have it. We just don't have
to make those connections.
So having, okay, so that's one thing. My kids are in Title I schools. I live in the urban Minneapolis area, and my kids go to the public schools here. I just got an email from my youngest child's middle school saying, we have been allocated more funds, which means this next semester we are going to be hiring more teachers and we'll have more class options. And so your
Oh,
children will have more opportunities. And just so you know, the schedule that they had like predicted that your kids would be on, like these classes, they said, just so you know, there may be some changes to that. If you have questions, let us know. And I cheered. I'm like, oh, more teachers? They're going to have smaller class sizes. They may have more options. Um, when my eldest was in middle school, he didn't have a health class because they couldn't keep the health teacher. And so he was supposed to have this education of health, physical, mental, all this stuff. And he never got that health curriculum. We had to sign him up for something outside of school in order to do that online. Anyway, so
but let me pause right there.
please, yeah, pause me. Go.
That right there is what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Mic drop. Boom. That it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
So
Why are
for
we?
you
Right.
have the ability to give him what he was missing in that Title I school, because he's in a Title I school. They don't have the ability to give him that because they couldn't hold on to the health teacher, right?
Yep.
So you were like, but hang on,
Right.
they still need that. And so I need to make sure that I give them the part of that education. So you funded it yourself.
And
What
I am
about those
privileged
families that
enough,
can't do that?
exactly. I am privileged enough to be able to do that. And we had free options, but I have the privilege of being able to have that brain capacity at this moment. You know, I'm not in the midst of trauma. I'm not at threat of being, harmed by people in my own society. All these things. I have the privilege of not having that happen so that I could put my focus on trying to do that.
Right.
Other parents don't have that.
No.
Other parents can't do that because they are just battling to survive.
I was going to say it's Maslow before Bloom. It always
Absolutely.
it goes back to that. I say that probably every time I get on one of these shows. I really do.
Yeah.
But if kids have not had their basic needs met, they are not going to learn from us. And until people can wrap their head around that and recognize that we have got to address those needs that kids have with the trauma and their backgrounds with, different dysregulation disorders and mental illness and wellness or mental illness issues, ADHD, all these things that are affecting kids these days. And this bill takes all of the funding.
All of that away. That's what you don't know, Molly.
Everything.
Right.
Gone.
Okay.
There is a spot that I actually wrote, and I'll just kind of pull it up and share. But that's exactly the problem. It's extra teacher positions gone. Funding for Title I gone. The other thing too, before I go on any further with that, funding for Title I and class sizes gets really muddy too. A lot of people don't understand when they look at, a school report card online and they see a class size and they go, oh, class ratio is 13-1. That's awesome. That's a great class size. But what you don't realize is that building has 6 self-contained special ed classes with 4 to 5 adults in the room. So when you then disperse it across the whole school, sure, it's 13-1. But Molly's got 36 kids in her 5th grade music class by
35.
herself.
Yep,
well,
35.
I'm on the whole working one-on-one with a kid.
My children in kindergarten had 27 and 30. Not in my classroom. In my suburban school that I worked at, we still have had years where we have had 34, 35 kids in a classroom. But in kindergarten, in my neighborhood, they had 27 to 30 kindergartners. And when I asked the principal about that and said, what are you doing? They said, oh yeah, no, we have people who come into the class who support them, who support them in math and things like that. And I'm like, great, but who supports them when the teacher is just trying to build a community in that class? And I also said, great, do those supporters go to music class?
Right. Or help walk them down the hall?
No. No.
5-year-olds
Anyway.
act like feral cats in the hallway.
Oh, wait. What happened to the parent helpers?
Right.
I understand.
Yes.
So here's my thing. My magic number is 16. Every time you will put a 17th child in a classroom with one of my kids, I won't tell you which one. I'm pretty sure you figure it out. All of a sudden, the world would come to a screeching halt and everything would fall apart, right? The number was 16, right? But so I love me a paraprofessional all day long. They got my heart because they helped me during the most challenging time of my child's development. And I thought for sure I was going to lose my everything, my head, my body, everything. But what happened to the parents coming in to help? They closed the parents out. How do we get parents back in the classroom? Because I'm going to say, they're eliminating. So as she said, the bill includes $3.7 billion for Title I grants to local educational agencies. So they're cutting the Title I money, right? But they're eliminating social emotional learning grants.
Gone.
Okay. So my thing for social emotional, that's where I'm going. So here we go. Let's go
like,
on this ride.
my foot is shaking right now.
I know. I'm like,
I said, look, you see me, what you noticed earlier, I was looking around. I'm looking for my fidget spinner because I'm like losing my crazy.
Yeah.
But my thing is it's harmful because we push the parents out and then so I'm a firm believer. Parent 1 is home. Parent 2 is school. The bonus parent is your community. Parent 1 is home. Parent 1 is doing the best that they can, and they're giving them all the life skills and all the educational things that they think that the school is missing in some cases, and they're just giving them living experiences and filling in everything that they can, value systems and family traditions and all these things, including education. They go to school, and remember, at school, you spend well over 2,000 hours. You spend away from your children 2,600 hours in a whole entire school year. And I'm sorry, in a whole entire year, calendar year. That means your children are not with you. Where are they? That means they're with parent number 2, the school in most cases. So we have to be mindful of what we're doing. So why is it that why did the schools close the parents kind of out of the educational process? Why is it that they drew a line in the sand that says we no longer want a whole lot of parents supporting us? So
there are 2 reasons that I'm aware of that I have seen. Okay, to speak from the side of the people within the schools, the 2 reasons that rolled out in my 20 years in the school that I worked at. One is school shootings, adults coming in and shooting children. And so things had to lock down. So they got much more careful about letting people into schools, even known people. So that is one reason, is that gun violence in schools, and I'm not talking kid to kid, I'm talking adults to kids. So that's one. Terrifying, horrible, all of that. The second is during COVID, everything had to shut down. And so things got shut off. Since then, things have begun to open back up again in the school that I am no longer in. I'm still in contact with people there, and it is slowly growing back. But the reality of crazy people who have access to guns is a big one. We don't need to go into it right now, but every single teacher walks into their classroom and has a plan for what they're going to do when the shooter comes. We all have a plan. And it's terrible.
Part.
Yeah.
I get the part of the violence part, right?
Right.
I don't really see. So violence in some cases is a response to
absolutely.
a situation.
Absolutely. Oh,
no one really wants to talk about that. Go ahead.
So I found some of my statistics, if I could give them.
Go for it.
Okay. In 2023, Scientific America reported this. Hospital admissions. Let's see. They reported on a 2021 survey that 88 children's hospitals reported an average of 4 teens per day admitted to inpatient programs.
Wow.
hmm From 2007 to 2021, suicide rates amongst young people ages 10 to 24 increased by 62%.
Mhm.
From 2014 to 2021, homicide rates rose by 60%.
Hmm.
So we are in the middle of a healthcare crisis. In October of 2021, a national emergency in child medical health was mental health. Sorry, a national emergency was declared in child mental health, and you can Google that. The CDC has an entire report on all of that, but we're in the middle of this, and this is one of my passions. I got into teaching. I decided to teach after the Columbine shooting.
Yeah.
I was not a teacher, and the Columbine shooting happened, and I went, I got to get in there.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're a
We're
fireman.
That was like my third year, and I was
Sure.
like, what is happening? Yeah.
Right.
So you're a fireman.
I guess
Yeah.
so.
She runs in. She runs in.
Why everybody else is running the other way, and Molly runs directly
She's like, here I
into
go.
the flames. Let's go in. We're gonna save some people. So, so I commend you for that. I think
Thank
it's amazing. My thing is that I could have helped you not be inundated by all of those parents showing up on the school grounds.
Yes.
Schools
Right,
do
right.
not have the ability to communicate effectively to the families that need to go
Right.
to where they need to go. When you
Absolutely.
have a bus accident, if you only contact those people, those families of the children who are on the bus and tell them, I need you to go to the hospital.
Right.
And everybody else receives a message that says, your child is not part of this accident. Please do not come to
Don't
the
show
school.
up.
Right?
Right.
And so I think that that's one of the things that could happen. But you actually state the reason why this is called Save Our Kids, because ultimately what you're saying is you're saying it's a mental health crisis. We've had conversations previously that have said it's not a mental health crisis, it's an emotional crisis. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's a crisis. The child is at the center of it, and they are the ones that are taking all of the consequences for all of the decisions that adults make that are not in the best interest of the child. So what's in it for me? What's in it for me is that I get to rest at the end of my night, knowing that that child has what they need in order to successfully live the life that they want to live, healthy and with the right development. Because what you don't want to do, so sometimes I think about end of life, end of days, right? What would it look like if it's end of life? If in my community I have 10,000 people and it gets reduced to 200. You know, what does that look like? That's kind of what it looks like. And if we don't hurry up and figure this out, we're showing you it's imploding. But the children are responding to us. The children are responding to our lack of initiative, or the unwillingness to change, or whatever any of those are. And I think that that's something to be said, because that's what it's. We don't care enough to stop things from continuing to roll downhill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That.
Very well said.
That's what I just feel like.
Absolutely.
Lori, I'm so thankful you came to visit us. I just want to let you know, thank you all for hanging out with us. We'll be doing this every Tuesday, same time. So Lori, yes. Christine, oh my gosh.
Another Christine, I love it.
Christine, yes. Children, just like adults, need to have the basic needs met in order to be functioning at their full potential. How does any adult feel when what you see that Snickers commercial. How do you feel when you don't eat?
Right.
So
You
if
get
they're
hungry.
making a Snickers commercial for telling you get hangry.
Well,
Why
it's all,
would
I mean,
you?
it's all interconnected, you
Yes.
know.
I
People
love that.
think, our brains, our emotions. I haven't been part of the conversation about mental health, emotional health, but just from my gut, I'm like, yeah, well, when I say mental health, I'm talking about how people deal with their emotions.
Right.
Yes.
And then the chemistry that is part of
Yeah.
all of that. And
Yeah.
so sometimes our chemistry can get off
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. But when with that Snickers commercial, when we are hungry and we are hangry, it's all body based, right? The brain is part of our body.
Yeah.
They're not disconnected. I love what Lori said. So schools are not getting how critical it is to connect emotionally and individually with the students. One point, Lori, we don't have what we need. Like
Yes.
we have gotten training backwards and forwards that at least in my experience, I guess I can only speak to my experience, okay? In my experience, we have been hit over the head with, it only takes one adult to make the difference in a child's life. Go connect, go connect, go connect.
Mhm.
And we are just like, with 35?
Right.
With 250 a day, which is what I saw. And so, yes, the question comes to mind. Perfect, Lori. How to get this across to the powers that be in a way that makes them listen. Absolutely.
And that is why we're here.
Wish I knew the answer to that, because
Yeah.
that's the problem. And
Absolutely.
the people making these decisions have no idea what's walking
Right.
in those classroom doors.
Right.
I just pulling, back to the bill for a second. Education is just a sliver of this too. And that's the other thing. Like, we haven't even touched on the fact that it's going to slash mental health supports. It's going to slash pre-existing condition support. If you have a pre-existing condition, forget it.
Wait, this is
Healthcare
in the
will be gone. This is all part of this bill. All
not
part of
the okay, so education is just a little piece of it.
Yep.
And
That's
there's
The
multiple.
whole
Yep.
entire bill. It is ridiculous. So we send you the link. You'll have a chance to take a look at it. Anybody who's looking for this, go ahead and type in House Republican funding bill. It will come up. But I'm here, and I'll put it in the comments after this call. I mean, after we wrap, and I'll put in the comments so people can go and look for it. But I'm here to tell you, it slashes. Remember what I said at the very beginning. House Republican funding bill kicks teachers out of classrooms. 1, takes away job opportunities. 2, and harms women and children. 3. That is because there are rider policies. There are insurance. There are rider additions that they actually call them policy writers. So policy writers that are all part of that. And when you start listening to this, because the one I tell you just makes me want to I have grit my teeth. The bill includes multiple policy writers to block the Department of Labor from implementing regulatory changes that would improve working conditions for workers in various industries. So as I figure out how to breathe, my concern is you. Because with them putting those type of things in there as a policy writer, that means that the mental health crisis that the teaching staff is currently dealing with is going to be largely ignored and erased, because there is they're taking away, what did he say? They're taking away the regulations, the regulatory changes. They're not gonna. So if you have mental health problems and you need to be out for 5 days, and one law says that you're supposed to make accommodations, and then they say, oh, based on this, I don't have to, you're done. That's what's about to happen. So
and that's where I flip out. Like, that's my compliance piece comes raging, and I'm like, it's against the law though. Not if they change the law.
It's a new law. It's going to be a new law.
Supporting kids that go to college, gone. Pell Grants, gone. Elderly support for low income, gone. Prenatal care and services for children in poverty, gone. So basically, You have to have a kid, but once they're here, we're not going to do damn thing to help you. So good luck.
Good luck with that. And then, but okay, so as we start to wrap up, because now we're going to leave everybody with options. What do you need to do as a parent, as a teacher, as administrator? Things that, first of all, one of the things, and so just think about that, ladies, because when we do, as we go around, I want you to give at least 1 to 3 points as to what people can do to help themselves to overcome what's coming down the pipe, or what's potentially coming down the pipe. Because right now, this is not law. They are just putting it in as a bill for review, right? So one is you need to begin to educate yourself on this bill. So I will go ahead and place that link in the on the video for LinkedIn and for YouTube, so you can go and search it out and start doing your research on that. Two, the one thing I would like to see from both of you, or hear from both of you, is have the ability to let them know what options as a parent do they have to go and be a part of their child's education. I do recognize that the school is apprehensive to allowing adults or other people in the building, but there has to be a way for you to be able to, she'll pop back on, I think. There has to be a way for you to be able to go out and work with the schools to support your child and things like that. So I would like to hear from you and Molly, if possible, about one or two things that they can do for that. And then the third one is that come back next week, because we're going to continue these conversations, because there are going to be new people and more people that will show up and should provide us more information as to how to do this. Educate yourself so that you can educate your child and prepare them for what's coming next. Because if you can't afford for your services to be cut now, when they get cut, what are you going to do? Those are options that you have to examine them. And now is a very good time to actually start this process. So go ahead, Kristen, give us some pointers.
It's funny. The very first thing I wrote down was educate yourself and vote. That's the first thing. People need to not only get involved, learn what's going on, but then go do something about it on election day. Don't sit at home going, man, that's going to suck when that goes through. Do something about it. Don't sit here waiting. Speak up. Research how you will be impacted, how your families will be impacted, how your children will be impacted. The other thing is, as an advocate for students with special education and 504 needs, I want to remind parents, those laws trump other laws. So if your child has an IEP and is not getting what they need, you have legal ramifications that you can take to make sure they get those services. So do not assume because the school is not appropriately staffed, or there isn't a position filled, or they have an increase in class sizes, that your child's plan is no longer available. But their plan is still to be implemented as written, regardless of what the school is able to provide or not. So being able to stand up and say, time out, this is what my child needs, is very important. So please feel free, if you're in that situation and need help, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with advocating with schools. But as Tabatha said, also just keep listening and following us and paying attention to these conversations as much as you can. We do on Thursdays, Breaking the Contradictions, Tabatha's other show we've got with Christine Jones, and that will be a topic of conversation on there as well. So just keeping that in mind as we go through, the next few months. You can't change things if you don't learn about them and speak up. So that's the biggest thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Molly, give us a couple pointers. Give the parents a couple pointers, or whomever. What do they need to do that's going to help them to kind of prepare for what's possibly going to be put into place?
Right. I don't have anything in my mind real specific for this specific bill, but the things that parents can do. One, if you pop onto my website, I also have conversations monthly about, there it is right there. Free conversations monthly that you can sign up for, mindful parenting conversations. And I have a Zoom second Thursday of every month that a bunch of parents get together and talk about how we can be more present for our own children while they are walking through this minefield that growing up feels like it is right now. So that's one thing. Tips that you could do today just for the mental health of your kids. Make sure you find ways to see them, and notice them. I could tell you why, but I'll just say, see them and notice them. Say something to them like, hey, this morning when you ... I felt so good about seeing that because it shows me that you really care about ... Something where you're just giving a notice of something they did, or, wow, you look really happy right now. What is making you so happy? Or if they're in the middle of not feeling happy, just say, oh, you're having some big feelings right now. Do you want me to be here with you, or do you want a little alone time for that? Those little things that sound so easy have a huge impact on the instinctual part of their brain, which then the instinctual part of their brain has a huge impact on their brain chemistry. So there we go.
Awesome. I am so glad that you two were able to join me today, and we were able to go over some things and hang out a little bit in a non-political conversation. It's not about politics. It's about what is happening because they're trying to make it more political. So I thank you all for spending the time with us. At the end of the day, thank you very much for coming back, Molly. I think that this is a conversation going to happen for the whole entire year. It's not going to be consistently only just the one thing. So there's many pieces of it. So we really do need to help educate and provide a solution, a way forward for those children, because it is our job to save our kids. They need to survive us even after it's all said and done. So until next time, remember, words are power. Please use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest or like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.